Then Sports Central will be giving you guys our Week 1 rankings for this 2024 college football season. The new season is officially here, and I'll be giving you guys our first college football rankings of this season here today. This will give you a look into some of the biggest contenders as we look forward to 2024 and what to expect as we head into this brand new season. So with that, let's get started with 1 through 5. Georgia is going to be number 1. This team, you look at the Bulldogs top to bottom, Carson Beck coming back, a strong defensive team. There's a reason why this is the favorite to win the national title by many looking forward to this season. You consider just the talent of this team, plus the fact they're going to have a chip on their shoulder this season. I mean, especially after being left out of the college football playoff last year. I still feel like if Georgia was in that top 4, despite losing to Alabama in the SEC title game, this team could have absolutely won it all. So this is a really strong team looking forward to this season. I got Ohio State at number 2. Most would argue this is maybe the most talented team in the country. Problem is they've lost to Michigan 3 straight years, and when it comes down to it, this team has just fallen short of being a true national contender. But this could be the year where tides turn once again. Michigan being in a much different era now, and Ohio State with the talent and the depth that this team has. I mean, Ohio State could absolutely win it all as well. I got Oregon number 3. Ohio State and Oregon are really, I would say, at a similar level. Oregon and Dylan Gabriel, they could be even better this season than they were last year. And they were this was a really tough team last year too. I mean, it was just Washington that got in the way of Oregon. Otherwise, this team could have won it all last year. So I would say anyone in this top 3, Georgia, Ohio State, or Oregon, these are the 3 teams that are most likely to win it all this season. Honestly, you could put Oregon number 1 in the preseason, and you'd have a pretty strong argument. Dan Lanning, incredible head coach, a really strong and experienced team as well. I feel like, any of these 3 teams, that just goes to show just how close the gap is between Georgia and Oregon in this top 3. Any of these 3 teams, I honestly would expect that your national champion is going to come out of your top 3 here. Texas at number 4 is really close. They're definitely the first one out of that top 3. Texas is a really strong team. You could say as talented as the top 3, but I just feel like it's more likely that Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon win it versus Texas. But once again, the Longhorns are there, and they do have a bit of a difficult schedule. Michigan on the road, week 2 is a big test. We'll kind of know after week 2 what to expect out of Texas this season. If they can go into the big house and pull off a win against a Michigan team that's almost a bit overlooked right now, I think Texas is, they're right up there, and they could absolutely win it this season. It's just there's a few of those early season games that'll tell us a lot. I've got Ole Miss number 5, though. You could argue Ole Miss is the best offense in the country. It's just about their defense. Can their defense hold up and allow them to be a true contender in what is a really difficult SEC at the top? You got Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss. I would say Georgia and Texas are definitely in the top tier. Alabama, Ole Miss, and you can maybe throw Mizzou in maybe that next tier, but I feel like Alabama and Ole Miss are kind of in that B tier in the SEC. Ole Miss's defense, if they can play at a high level, we know their offense is going to be great. Jackson Dart, backfield receiving core, they're going to be tough there. It's just about what the defense can do for the Rebels. And, Ole Miss is one of those teams kind of on the outside looking in. I wouldn't be surprised, with the 12-team playoff this season, that just opens the door for a team like Ole Miss to make a run and potentially win a national championship. So, I say Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon's your most likely teams to win it all this season. But you never know. It's a 12-team playoff now, so you got to consider that. And really any of these teams from 5 to 10 could absolutely, I would say, win it all this season. Alabama's number 6. I feel like the Crimson Tide might take a bit of a step back in 2024. First year of a new era, Kellen DeBoer in there. I can almost guarantee you Kellen DeBoer is going to have success with Alabama. This is such a strong team to the point where, Kellen DeBoer has had success anywhere that he's gone. So I wouldn't be concerned about this team in the long run, but for 2024, I wouldn't be surprised if this team was maybe a 9 or 10 win team in the regular season, especially with the difficult schedule that they have. But I could still definitely see this team in the 12-team playoff, and we all know Alabama. Whenever they get in the playoff, you got to keep an eye on them. They're a true dark horse, and they like to prove people wrong. That is just who Alabama is. So still keep an eye on them, though I do think they maybe take a bit of a step back this season. Notre Dame number 7, Riley Leonard in there. They kind of disappointed last season with Sam Hartman and a really talented team. We'll see about 2024. I still like Notre Dame a lot. I feel like this team will take a step forward in 2024, and they could definitely be a big dark horse in this year's playoff. And they've got a very manageable schedule as well. That's worth keeping in mind. They've got a test on the road in College Station in week 1, but otherwise, this is a very manageable season for the Irish, and I mean, it's a pretty easy schedule. So I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame was definitely at least in the top 12 in the playoff this season. Then you got Michigan and Penn State, kind of in similar positions. I mean, you got the 8th tier in the Big Ten, which is Ohio State and Oregon. Penn State and Michigan are definitely in that 2nd tier, and they are not far off from Ohio State or Oregon, I would say. I mean, Michigan just won a national championship, and everyone's kind of writing them off in the preseason. Michigan can definitely prove some people wrong this season. I would not be surprised. This is still a really strong team. I mean, they're a much different team this season, and obviously a new head coach, Jim Harbaugh gone, everything like that. And that's a big reason why everyone's written Michigan off. But don't be surprised if Michigan still remains a big-time contender this season. I mean, they might go all the way and win the Big Ten still. So, I mean, don't sleep on Michigan. I feel like some are kind of sleeping on them. Michigan could definitely prove a lot of people wrong here. Penn State, number 9. This is also one of those background teams to really keep an eye on. I think Penn State, if they can get a shot in the 12-team playoff, they could surprise some people and make a run. I would not be surprised. I mean, Penn State the last 2 years, they've been one of the best teams in the country the last 2 years, but they just haven't had much attention because, one, they haven't been able to get past Ohio State or Michigan, and so they haven't even been in the Big Ten championship or obviously in the college football playoff as a result. But Penn State's been a really strong team the last couple of years. If Drew Aller can improve and this team just takes a step forward, and this is still a difficult schedule for Penn State, but it's, I would say, more manageable than the last couple of seasons. So Penn State has a true chance to surprise some people this season. Keep an eye on them. And I would say anyone in this top 9 from Georgia to Penn State, these are the true national contenders this season. I would say your national champion is honestly certainly going to come out of this top 9 this season, I would say. But obviously surprises can happen, especially in a 12-team playoffs. You never know. But I got Florida State number 10. Florida State, a disappointing finish to 2023, obviously, and we don't need to talk about that. But for 2024, this is still a really talented team that some are kind of sleeping on, I think, with Uiagalelei in there. He's a really strong quarterback. If he can stay healthy and this Florida State team doesn't be too focused on last season, and if they can put last season behind, Florida State can really be a big contender this season as well. 11 through 15, Mizzou's number 11. This team, talent-wise, could definitely be one of the most, or they are one of the most experienced teams in the country. Look at how strong of a season they had in 2023. This is a true team to keep an eye on. But my concern with Mizzou is just looking at the SEC. You consider Georgia, Texas, obviously in the conference now, Alabama, Ole Miss. I just don't know that Mizzou can top any of those teams. I mean, Mizzou's a really strong team. We'll have to see if they can, but I just don't have much confidence that they can take down, say, a Georgia or a Texas in the SEC championship. But they're still very much a 12-team playoff contender, so you never know once we get to the 12-team playoff. And then there's Tennessee at number 12. They are 15th in the AP poll. I like Tennessee a lot this season, honestly. They weren't as good last season versus where they were in 2022, but I really like Yamaleva as a quarterback. I feel like this is a really well-balanced team. Wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee surprised some people this season and ended up being one of the top teams in the conference. Oklahoma State's number 13. This is my highest-ranked Big 12 team. Yes, in front of Utah. And these three teams are, the next three are your top 3 in the Big 12, Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Utah. I do like Oklahoma State best out of the 3, which some I disagree with. I mean, you look at Utah and Cam Rising, and I mean, Utah is, you could say, top to bottom, the most talented team in the conference. But something about Oklahoma State I really like a lot. The fact that You have Ollie Gordon, who is probably the best running back in the country. This is a team that's going to be experienced in this upcoming season. I think Oklahoma State might be my favorite to win the Big 12 this season, despite Utah maybe being the most talented. So definitely keep an eye on the Cowboys in this upcoming season, which Big 12, by the way, I mean, you've heard it before. This is such a fun conference. I mean, there's no one that's really a big standout. We might end up seeing a big standout or two out of the Big 12, but the gap is so close between the top 5 teams or so in the conference. I mean, you got Oklahoma State, you got Arizona, Utah, K-State. You could say Kansas in there as well. I mean, this is going to be a fun conference with, honestly, any of the top 5 teams there that I just mentioned could definitely win the conference this season. And they end up as a top 4 team with a bye in the college football playoffs. It'll be a ton of fun. Arizona, number 14. This was a team that I said, I mean, you look at the second half, the last month of last college football season, the way Noah Fafita came out of nowhere and turned out to be, I would say, one of the top quarterbacks in the country there later on in the season. It was going to be tough for any team in the country to beat Arizona later on. This team was almost unbeatable. They were on a hot streak there at the end of 2023. Obviously, Fish off to Washington, so a new coach. Kind of had a tough time for an Arizona team that's going to be really talented in this upcoming season. And yet I still feel like even after the hot streak that this team went on at the end of 2023, they still have a lot of talent. This is going to be an experienced team this season. A lot of strong talent here, and they're ranked 21st in the AP poll. They should be a lot higher. Keep an eye on Arizona in this upcoming season, and then Utah and Cam Rising. The main reason why I have Oklahoma State and Arizona ahead of Utah is because I just have a feeling about Cam Rising. Cam Rising's an incredible quarterback, but he was injured all of last season. We didn't see him at all last season. And so how is he going to be coming back from injury, not playing for an entire year? I mean, that's kind of my uncertainty with Utah. This just isn't, I mean, they were incredible there for a couple of years. Took a step back last season for obvious reason. But, I mean, I just have a little concern over Utah. We'll see how it fares out. I mean, Utah is expected by many to win the conference. They definitely can. But I just have a feeling Oklahoma State and Arizona especially will end up being better than Utah this season. Then you got LSU at 16. This is kind of a team in that same tiers, I would say, Tennessee and Mizzou. They'll be a strong team this season. Do have a few uncertainties about them, but I do think LSU finds a way to at least be a bit of a they'll be a noisemaker in the SEC. I don't see this team winning the conference this season, but they'll still be a solid team this year. Clemson, 17. One of your top contenders in the ACC for sure. They had a strong finish to last year. Cade Klubnik coming around, hopefully. I do think Clemson ends up being a pretty strong team this season. The ACC, though, just have a few uncertainties about. You got Florida State, Clemson, and Miami as I would say the top 3 in the conference this season. NC State's kind of on the outside looking in, team worth keeping an eye on. But Clemson, though, I mean, they've had expectations going into like last year. They did have higher expectations and did still disappoint a bit. So can this team get over the hump? That's a big question for the Tigers this year. Oklahoma's number 18, first year in the SEC, and this team has a brutal schedule. I mean, having to play Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss on the road, Mizzou on the road, Alabama, LSU on the road. That's what I think is the big roadblock for OU this season, especially. I mean, I do like Jackson Arnold a lot. This is a team with some really strong young talent. And I think that the future is bright for the Sooners. I think this team is a contender in the SEC in the future. I just don't know that it's in 2024. They'll still be a strong team, but with as brutal of a schedule as they have, it will be a bit of maybe a step back in 2024. K-State's number 19. I feel like this is, I mean, once again, the Big 12 is so close with Utah, Arizona, Oklahoma State. I would say K-State's in there and Kansas right behind. I mean, K-State is a really interesting team to keep an eye on for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if they won the conference either. Once again, the conference is really just that close. Then you got Miami at 20. I mean, Miami's one of those teams that I feel like has a lot of, I mean, they have high expectations. They had higher expectations going into last year, kind of disappointed a bit. But this year, it feels like Miami finally takes that step forward with Cam Ward. This will be a strong offense in this upcoming season. Defensively, they should improve as well. So don't be surprised a bit if Miami ends up winning the ACC. I feel like they are They're ranked lower than Florida State or Clemson, but I would say talent-wise, they can definitely be right up next to those two teams. Then for 21 through 25, Texas A&M at 21. Mike Elko, new era for the Aggies. I do think that the future is bright for Texas A&M. They've been such a disappointing team the last few years with the talent that they have had. There's really no excuse that Texas A&M can't be a strong team in this upcoming season. Just once again, the talent of this team, they're worth keeping an eye on no matter what as we look forward to 2024. Then you got Kansas at 22. This team is I would say a true Big 12 contender this season. Jason Bean, a team with talent, obviously a really well-coached team. Who would have thought 5 years ago that we'd be looking at Kansas here as a team, as a true Big 12 contender, but also a college football playoff contender, and that's where we are with KU right now. This is a really strong team and definitely worth keeping an eye on in this upcoming season. Virginia Tech's probably my favorite dark horse in the country. They're starting to catch some noise now, looking forward to the season, but this team's got experience, and they are definitely a team worth really watching out for. Kyron Drones coming back, a strong team all around. Virginia Tech could really surprise a lot of people and end up winning the ACC. Miami's got expectations. Clemson does. Florida State has high expectations. Virginia Tech really doesn't. And talent-wise, they're on a similar level as I would say the top teams in the conference. NC State's 24, right behind Virginia Tech. NC State, Grayson McCown there. This is going to be a fun team to watch in this upcoming season. We'll see if they can make some noise in the conference. I think they will. I don't know if they win the conference, but this is one of those strong background teams looking forward to 2024. And then you got Washington at 25. Do have to put the Huskies in my top 25. Everyone's written the Huskies off looking forward to 2024. I get that this is a totally different team. Kalen DeBoer off to Alabama, but Jed Fish is still an incredible head coach. We saw what Arizona did in the second half of last season. Future is still bright for Washington. I would say 2024 is going to be, it ain't going to be the same, but everyone's kind of expecting that. But Will Rogers and this team is still a strong football team. So don't write off Washington just yet. They could definitely prove some wrong this season and still maybe be an 8 or 9 win team for sure. They're not going to be a big-time contender, but they'll still be a strong team in 2024. And then for your first 5 out, I got USC, Iowa, West Virginia, Louisville, and then Iowa State. The Big 12 just has more depth with West Virginia and Iowa State. These two teams are, Iowa State's a really well-coached team. It seems like they're on the rise again, so they could definitely be a pretty strong team this season. West Virginia is one of those dark horse teams that I really like. Iowa, if their offense can get it together, they could definitely be a really strong team this season, a strong college football playoff contender. Their defense should be good enough. USC got some questions about them after a really disappointing 2023. And then Louisville in the ACC, kind of a wide-open conference. You never know. So it's definitely going to be a fun season. Looking forward to it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this top 25. Once again, we got, as we always do, top 25s coming out each week of the season moving forward. So with that, appreciate you guys watching as always. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.